We were doing so well. Ah. Fuck! What's going on, guys? It's your boy Burgz here from The Casual Athlete, and by now, I'm sure you know the drill. And we are going to be looking at round 4 tips and predictions this week. But let's take a look back at last week. And as you can tell by my intro, I was not happy with how I went last week. If you followed my tips, I am so sorry. We started off well, we had Penrith getting a pretty easy win out there. I thought it'd be closer than that, but the Reece Walsh injury kind of ruined that. The Warriors made it close with the Raiders. I thought they'd get a bigger win, to tell you the truth, but the Raiders actually look pretty solid this year. I cannot believe I tipped the Rabbitohs. After that performance, I am so on the fence again about tipping them this week. Hopefully their luck improves. The Titans as well, they got pumped out at Belmore, and now Tino's done his ACL as well, so that pretty much ends the Titans season effectively immediately. My Cowboys, though, big positive of the weekend. They got a huge win and are top of the table. We haven't really played any, I would say, real teams yet, though, so I'm very interested to see how we go against the Broncos this week. The biggest surprise to me over the weekend was the Sharks. They didn't turn up at all. It looked like they didn't even know how to play football at some points. And the Tigers just run riot out at Leichhardt. I found it very interesting that both teams playing at their, I suppose, heritage grounds, Leichhardt and Belmore for the Dogs and Tigers respectively, got massive wins, and that's great for the faithful that turned up to those grounds. Para, I was quietly confident about this game. I don't know what it is about Parramatta at this point in time. They have had a big injury toll, though, today, and I will get into that a little bit later. But they got the win 1-12. We managed to kind of rescue a 50% hit rate this week, and the Storm finished it off on the weekend. It was always going to be a bit hard. I stuck to the Storm. I thought they'd still get the win against the Knights. They probably should have at some point. They just lacked a bit of polish, lacked a bit of class, didn't really have those big game players to take over the game. I thought Pappenhausen played pretty well. Harry Grant played pretty well, but it just wasn't enough. There wasn't, the class in the halves for me to really get that game over the line for them. And before we go any further, guys, just a quick update on the TCA tipping comp we are running this year. The link is in the description for those who haven't joined the competition yet. Please make sure that you go down there and enter the code at the NRL tipping, or you can use the app as well. But big changes this week as we do have a new leader, Benny Backshots. Benjamin, well done to you, mate. Congratulations for getting to that top spot. I've unfortunately fallen all the way to 42nd in the comp after finishing last week in the top 10. And God, it breaks my heart a lot, but I will try to be back up there for you guys this week. Before we get into my tips, guys, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week just for you guys. We're quickly rising in numbers at the moment, and every single subscription is appreciated. Make sure that you hit that like button so that you are notified about our latest videos. It's Easter time, baby, and the first game of the Easter weekend for the NRL in round 4 is the Roosters taking on the Penrith Panthers at Allianz Stadium. Now, the big news out of this game is that the Panthers will be without the star halfback Nathan Cleary for about 4 weeks. It was rumoured that he was taken off through injury, and the Panthers denied it. Later, though, we are discovering that it has been a hamstring strain for the star halfback. Now, the big thing for Penrith is since 2022, they've played 15 games without Nathan Cleary, winning 12 of those games coming into this year. So I think it gives them a little bit of confidence that they can play without Cleary. However, they have generally had someone step up into those halves positions. This year, they are without Jack Cogger, as he has moved on to the Newcastle Knights, who got a good win last week. I expect young gun Jack Cole, who played in the World Club Challenge alongside Nathan Cleary when Luai was out, to come in there. But in the last 10 games between these two teams as well, you've got to take into account The Roosters are on the wrong side of it. They've only won one out of the last 10 games against the Panthers, and they are on a 8-game losing streak currently against the Panthers. So they are also without some key players. I'm not sure if Kiri's going to come back this week. We just found out Sandon Smith, who was stunning last week in that big win against the Rabbitohs. He has torn a ligament in his elbow and will be out for 4 to 6 weeks. They will be without Lindsay Collins as well. Billy Smith still looking to make his way back from an ankle injury. There's a lot to process here. It's a lot of information. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you guys, but I think in this game, I'm not liking Penrith's chances without Nathan Cleary. I do think the Roosters look a little bit better this year. I'm not sure who's going to really step up for Penrith in this game, especially being away from home and the fact that the Roosters were so dominant last week. I think the Roosters have been a better team this year. They did lose to Manly, however, but I just think they're a little bit unlucky in that game. And then last week, Teddy really stepped up. We had a lot of players from that Roosters side really step up and take the reins. Sandon Smith being one of them, Sam Walker another as well. I do like the Roosters in this game. I'm going to tip them though 1-12 because I do think that Penrith will make it close and make it at least a decent game with their defense. So I'm going to go the Roosters 1-12. The second game of our Easter weekend starts on Friday, where we have the usual Souths versus Bulldogs match. And over the last 10 games between these two teams, the Dogs have only won 3 out of those 10 games, but they did get the most recent win against Souths in July last year. This game always has some tension to it. There is always a close fixture, especially around Easter time. I got to tell you, Souths have been nothing but poor coming into this season. They've really dropped the ball, dropping Ilias. There's a lot of noise around the team again, and Latrell can't seem to shut his mouth sometimes, and that's also a bit distracting. They've also got Cameron Murray now, who's dealing with a bit of a niggle, didn't finish training today. So just I think that the Souths really need to get it together. Otherwise, they're going to be staring down the barrel again of not making the 8 this year. And they're one of the teams that everyone expects to be in the top 8. Dogs, though, however, they got a massive win last week. And Jacob Carraz was huge in that game against the Titans. I just don't know if they're going to back it up. It's kind of the same thing that I feel with the Tigers this week. Did they play essentially a really big game? They got the win off their back, and now the pressure's off. And will they relax? And especially coming up against the Souths team that is raring to go to get their first win this year. They need it desperately, and a lot of people be looking at this game as a big upset. I think just looking at the line here really quickly. The Dogs are $2.66 this week, which is mind-boggling to me, considering that they had a massive win last week, and the Rabbitohs, well, they were terrible. I think this game should be almost a very even $1.80, $2.10 kind of thing, but right now it's blown out to the Rabbitohs being $1.50. If they don't get a win this week, then by God, they're looking at the first month of the season being a complete failure, and trying to have to pick it up in the back half of the season. And we've seen that stuff like that, it doesn't work. Really didn't work for Parramatta last year. Didn't work for the Cowboys either. I'm just really worried for them at this stage. But I am going to tip them this week. But I think this game will be close, unfortunately, for the Rabbitohs. I can't really give them much more leeway than that. I can't guarantee that they're going to come out of the blocks firing and really take it to the Dogs. But part of me really thinks that the Dogs, with a win last week, won't come out with the same energy. They'll be like, monkey's off our back now. We got that win. Let's move forward and relax for a couple of weeks. That's just the kind of vibe I'm getting about the Dogs at the moment. So I am going to go with the Rabbitohs to break the losing streak again this week, 1-12. All right, next up on the Friday night doubleheader is the Derby to end all derbies. We have an all Queensland one on Friday night, and it is the Broncos taking on the Cowboys, my North Queensland Cowboys, top of the table at Suncorp Stadium. And what a clash this is going to be. Missing a few key stars on either side. I think Payne Haas won't be available for this game. He is set to actually be back until round 8. I'm hearing that Adam Reynolds will not play again this week. That medial ligament strain is taking a little bit longer than expected. And as we know, on Friday night last week, Reece Walsh hurt himself with a facial fracture and will possibly be out until about round 9, round 10 at this stage. Lot of injuries as well on the Cowboys side of things. We are without Helam Lukey as well. Zach Labert didn't start the game last week. Tom Chester came into the centres. And then Reuben Cotter has also hurt himself in last week's game with an ankle injury that may take 1 to 2 weeks. So I don't expect him to lace up the boots this week either. The one thing that I'm most concerned about with the Cowboys is our defense is absolutely horrendous right now. We gave up big leads to the Knights and the Dragons, and we've been able to mow those teams down, starting the comeback trail again. It's almost like it's 2015 again for me. In this game, though, however, I think we're going to continue the winning streak. I just think the players that are out for Brisbane are so important to unlocking other parts of their attack. Your Ezra Mam. Ezra Mam looks lost at the moment, especially without Reynolds and Walsh. Last week against Penrith, he was not really doing too much to try and take over that game. They've got Jock Madden in there at the moment. He's serviceable at best. I'm just not really seeing any punch at the moment from anyone other than Carrigan at this stage. Piakura looks like he's coming into his game a bit better, which is good for you fantasy guys who stuck with Piakura, but yeah, I think the Cowboys are going to continue the roll on here and get a win on Brisbane and break the losing streak that we're currently on with Brisbane. 4 games in a row. I'm hoping that the Cowboys don't make it 5. I'm going to go the Cowboys 1 to 12. Round 4, Easter weekend, continues on Saturday where we have the Dragons taking on the Sea Eagles. In the last 10 games between these two teams, the Dragons have only won 3 out of those 10 games. And so the Sea Eagles can come into this one with a little bit of confidence. They also get a few players back as well, with Tofofo Sipley being back from suspension, and Tommy Talau will also be available this week if they choose to go that way. Although I thought Raymond Vega had a very good game last week. The Dragons also get some players back as well, with Francis Molo coming back, and Jacob Little should come back into the starting side from a concussion injury. Now, in this game, I do think it's pretty straightforward with the Sea Eagles being favourites. They were a bit unlucky against Para in last week's game, although I was confident that Para would come out and win that game. I just think the Sea Eagles will have a little bit too much class for the Dragons. It's been very hit and miss for the Dragons. Round 1, they were superb. Round 2, they were atrocious. Last week, they looked good for about half an hour and then gave it up, and the Cowboys came back and put 46 points on them. With a team like the Sea Eagles at the moment, with their attack being so potent, I do think the Dragons are going to struggle to stop it, especially after that 40 to 50 minute mark. I expect Brooks and Trebojevic to get on the same page this week and get a pretty big win, 13 plus. From a Queensland derby on Friday night to a Queensland derby on Saturday night, where we have the Gold Coast Titans taking on the Dolphins on the Gold Coast. For the Gold Coast Titans, they have not racked up a regular season win against the Dolphins. They are 2-0, the Dolphins, against the Titans. At the moment, for both teams, there are injury concerns on either side. We have some potential big names coming back this week, or although they are expected back this week, I'm not too sure whether Jaden Campbell and David Fafita will suit up for the Titans. The big blow came in last week's game where Tino Fasua Malawi has torn his ACL, or ruptured his ACL, as I will say. As someone who has done their ACL, my heart goes out to him. It is not a pleasant injury and takes a long time to heal. So his season is unfortunately over, and you've got to say with it is the Titans season. Losing Tino is huge for the Titans. He is the workhorse in the middle. He does so much for them on and off the field, being the club captain as well. I just feel so bad for Titans fans. They probably expected a bit of a turnaround this year, and unfortunately that has ended almost in round 4. I will like to see them respond in this game and try and get a win over a Dolphins side that is coming off a bye, so they get a bit of a rest. It helps the guys with concussion injuries. We had Cody Nikorima with a concussion injury. We've also got Ray Stone potentially coming back as well from a concussion. So that extra week really helps. I'm not so sure who to tip in this game. I mean, the Titans are mad outsiders, and that for me garners a pretty big response. Although they didn't even score a point last week. AJ Brimson, while looking pretty good in the centres, bombed a dead set try that would have put him on the board first, and the whole game could be different from that point of view. Whereas the Dolphins, they're coming off the last time we saw them, massive victory against the Dragons. I'm going to back the Titans. Now, I'm going to throw this out with a little bit of a caveat. This video is going to go out before team lists are made. If David Fafita and Jaden Campbell, and we'll say that both of them have to play for this game, I will tip the Titans. If both those players are not playing in this game, I will be switching to the Dolphins. Just to make that clear, I will be going the Titans with David Fafita and Jaden Campbell, 1 to 12. Without Jaden Campbell and David Fafita, I will be going the Dolphins, 1 to 12. Our next game on Easter weekend takes us over to New Zealand, where we have the Warriors taking on the Knights. In the last 10 games between these two teams, the Knights have the better of it, winning 6 out of those last 10 games. The Warriors, though, however, won the most recent meeting between these two teams in September last year, where they won 40 to 10. The Warriors are the only team with injury concerns in this one. The Knights are actually at full strength, if you can believe that. They should get Wade Egan back for this game, but I think Chance Nickel-Klukstar is a little further away, maybe round 5 to come back from his injury. The Warriors in this start to this season are making games really close. They probably should have got a win in round 1 and 2. I think they were unlucky against the Sharks, and then a few seconds of brilliance away from beating the Storm as well. So the Knights, for me, very disappointing. They couldn't really rack up a score against a pretty depleted Melbourne side, although Melbourne, they're generally pretty good defensively. I just think it was a bit of a disappointing outing in front of their home fans. The Knights seem to be transitioning back to those, old habits where they keep games close for a long time. They drop ball in really crucial situations and just invite the other team back into the game. And unfortunately, the Storm weren't good enough to ice it last week, but it really could have gone either way, especially after that Wishart try in the last 5 minutes. He just strolled through the line and put that over. So that concerns me. So in this game, I'm actually going to go with the Warriors. I do think at home it gives them an added boost, and I think Wade Egan coming back into the side is a massive positive for them. And for the Knights, they should be better at the moment. I think getting that win, there was a lot of pressure that came off them. You could really feel it in the air last week, especially in the last 5 minutes after Wishart scored, that if they lost that game and went 0-3, it was going to be a lot of pressure put on Adam O'Brien, who was just re-signed for another 3 years extension as well. So, yeah, a lot of pressure down there at the Knights. It's not looking good, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go the Warriors in this one, 13 plus. NRL Easter Sunday continues with the Sharks taking on the Raiders at PointsBet Stadium. In the last 10 games between these two teams, surprisingly to find out that Cronulla have only won 1 out of the last 10 games against the Raiders, but they did break the streak last year, winning 20-6. So that was good for them. At this point in time, a couple of key ins for both teams this week should bolster the ranks. We do have Corey Horsburgh coming back from suspension this week, and that is a massive in, as he was looking good for Queensland selection last year and in superb form. And then Hamlin Uele should come back in. That should help with the losses of Dale Finucane this week for a facial injury, and then also Toby Rudolph didn't finish the game last week either. I really like the Raiders in this game, to tell you the truth. They're not the favourites, which I'm finding extremely hard to see at this point. The Sharks $1.50, if you can believe that. So the Raiders are $2.60. And this is going to go down as our inaugural THCA lock of the week. That's right. The Raiders are my THCA lock of the week this week. I tell you what, they've been solid this year. They are playing very simple football. I think they know their game and the way Ricky wants them to play. I think the added boost of having Corey Horsburgh back into the ranks helps them massively. It takes a lot of pressure off guys like Joe Tarpany, Amre Gula, and then off the back of that, Morgan Smithies as well. May not get a massive role in the 13, but he is a solid player and will come off the bench as well. So I like the Raiders in this one, 1-12. The last game of round 4 takes us to Combank Stadium, where we have the Eels taking on the Tigers in what is always a great game on your Easter Monday. In the last 10 games between these two teams, the Eels have won 9 of the last 10 games, with the exception being the Jackson Hastings field goal night for the Tigers to break a losing streak that they were on to start the 2022 season. The Eels should get Micah Sevo back, which is a big help for them, especially at Combank Stadium, since he always scores at Combank Stadium. For the Tigers, for me, their performance last week wasn't exactly flawless. They scored a lot of tries off kicks. There was a bit of luck involved in some of those tries, but the Sharks just weren't up to par. And honestly, I do think in a lot of ways the Tigers bullied them down the middle. Rudolph, Finucane not being able to really finish the game there kind of says a lot, and how hard the Tigers were willing to run to get a win. The big news for me, and it's just like Nathan Cleary with the Panthers, Mitchell Moses has been discovered to have a foot fracture, and he will be out until about round 12, and that is massive for the Eels. Mitchell Moses is the lifeblood that keeps the Eels moving a lot of the time. I just think that with him out, they're going to be struggling to find a good replacement. One thing I would like, and this is a rookie watch thing, if you guys watch my rookie video at the start of the season, you will know that I do like Ethan Sanders from the Parramatta Eels. He does play in the reserve grade side and has been having a couple of good games there, and also was the under-19s man of the match in last year's under-19 State of Origin. So he's a good player. A good young up-and-coming player. We just saw a young up-and-coming Parramatta player play pretty well. Blaze Talangi came in, did pretty well. One thing I don't think Brad Arthur will do this week is put in Ethan Sanders. Why? Because Dejan Arce is at the club and he has played in the 7 jersey before for Parramatta, and Brad Arthur often sticks to what he knows. His son and players that really haven't done much at other clubs. I'm having a go at BA, but I am having a bit of a go at BA. I just don't think that he'll put in the young gun because he's untried, untested, and Brad Arthur doesn't like doing that with a lot of players unless he absolutely has to, and he absolutely had to last week with Blaze Talangi, and that's the only reason Blaze Talangi played last week. But good on him for getting his debut and scoring a try in that game. That was great. In this game, though, however, I am going to tip the Eels. They are massive favourites in this game, and I do not know why, because, Tigers are fresh off a win. They are missing Mitchell Moses. I think it should be a little bit closer, but the Tigers are roughly around $2.60 at this point in time. So, yeah, not great in terms of Parramatta. It's a game they should win, and they often lose the games that they should win, and that's something that is so frustrating to watch as, sideline Para fan at times, with friends and family and that kind of thing. So, yep, I'm actually going to tip Parramatta in this game, but I think it'll be close, 1-12. So that is it for this week's video, guys. Let me know what you think about my tips down in the comments section below. If you want to join our fantasy and tipping comps, the links are in the description. Please make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe to make sure that you are notified about our latest videos. Have a great Easter weekend. I know I will. I'm going camping this weekend, and I'll catch you on the next one.